was 29 and telling myself night shifts were a stepping stone, not a lifestyle. Rent made that lie easy. The job was at Cedar Stop, a no-brand convenience store off a highway exit outside a mid-size Midwestern city. One clerk, one register, and a camera system that looked tough and recorded like it was tired. Dawn, my manager, trained me on one laminated rule. Stay behind the counter and don't cause paperwork. That Tuesday in early spring started normal. Coffee refills, lottery tickets, the occasional commuter who looked offended I existed. After midnight, the highway thinned to long gaps of nothing. At 12:37, a silver sedan rolled in and didn't pull to a pump. It parked crooked, nose angled toward the exit. The driver stayed inside, hands fixed on the wheel, staring at the store like he was waiting for permission. The interior light flicked on. In the back seat, something shifted under a dark blanket. Not a quick bounce like a dog. Slower. More deliberate. He waited, then stepped out. Mid-30s ball cap, hoodie zipped high. He looked up at the camera above the door before he looked at me like he wanted the record to show he'd behaved. The bell chimed when he entered. He didn't browse. He didn't even pretend. "Bathroom key," he said. Our bathroom was outside, around the side. One door, keypad, key on a chunky plastic paddle so nobody could pocket it. "Code's on the receipt," I said. "Key stays here." He stared at the paddle like it offended him. "Just the key," he said softer, like we were negotiating. "No," I said. "That's the rule." He leaned forward close enough that I caught stale smoke and a sharp chemical note. His hands were clean. Too clean for someone who'd just fueled up on a shoulder somewhere. He read my name tag out loud. Evan. I didn't like hearing it from him. "You alone?" he asked. "Night shift," I said. "Always." His eyes went past me toward the back hallway, measuring. "You got cameras in the lot?" he asked. "Some," I said. "Good," he said, like he meant the opposite. Then he left without buying anything. Outside, the sedan's rear window had a foggy patch from the inside. That detail hit harder than the blanket, because fog means breath. The blanket moved again. A small rocking, like whoever was under it was trying to reposition without being noticed. I pulled up the camera zoom. Grainy reflections. No face, no hands, just motion. The sedan started. It didn't leave. It rolled forward a few feet and stopped with a cleaner angle on the entrance. My brain started doing math. I'm alone. He knows my name. If I call, he might come back inside. If I don't call, someone under that blanket might not make it to morning. I grabbed the cordless store phone so I wouldn't have to turn away from the windows and dialed 911. 911, where are you?" the dispatcher said. "Cedar Stop off exit 14, I said. "There's a car in my lot, and I think someone's in the back seat under a blanket." "What's happening right now?" she asked. The driver came in, asked for a bathroom key, left. The back windows fogged from inside. I saw movement. "Do you see a weapon?" she asked. "No." "Stay inside," she said. "Do not approach the vehicle. Describe the car." I gave her the make, color, and the partial plate I'd memorized the second it pulled in. "Repeat the plate," she said. I did. "Units are coming," she said. The sedan backed out immediately, like it had been waiting for that exact cue, and shot toward the highway. I watched it disappear and realized my hands were shaking only after the phone nearly slipped. 2 county cruisers arrived within minutes. One deputy stayed with me while the other went after the sedan. The other deputy radioed back. "No contact, car gone, no plate match." The deputy who came in was a woman with tired eyes and the kind of calm that meant she'd seen the worst and still had to show up tomorrow. "You, Evan?" she asked. "Yeah." "What'd you see?" she said, already scanning the doors and the cameras like she didn't trust my store any more than I did. I told her. Her expression tightened at the fogged window part. "Plate?" she asked. I repeated it. She spoke into her radio, quiet, then looked back at me. "You did the right thing," she said, but it didn't sound comforting. It sounded like a warning. "Is there a case?" I asked. "There might be," she said. "We'll need your statement and your video." "Corporate owns the system," I said. "We'll handle corporate," she replied, like it wouldn't be the hardest part of her night. After she left, Dawn called, furious in advance. "Why are deputies at my store?" she demanded. "Because I called," I said. "Someone was in a back seat under a blanket." "You don't call without calling me," she snapped. "He knew my name," I said. A beat. Then, colder. "Take the tag off and don't talk to anyone. If anyone asks questions, you say nothing." I tried to pull the footage myself. The monitor let me rewind, but the file stuttered, skipping frames like it was embarrassed. The sedan was there, then a blur, then gone. The back sight area was always just glare. When I leaned closer, I saw my own face reflected, pale and wide-eyed, like I'd been the one trapped under that blanket, not moving. At 3:08, a delivery van I didn't recognize eased into the parking lot and stopped exactly where the sedan had sat. No pump, no headlights off, just parked, engine idling. Plain black letters on the side read, Northline. The van didn't come to the door. It stayed in the dark. A shadow shifted behind the windshield, and then 2 slow knuckles tapped the glass from the inside. Not a knock. A signal. The van sat there idling, parked like it was waiting for me to make a choice. I flipped the sign to closed and stayed behind the counter in full view of the camera. I called the non-emergency line. "County Dispatch," the operator said. "This is Cedar Stop off exit 14, I said. "A van is parked in my lot, not at a pump. The driver tapped the windshield and won't come in." "Do you feel threatened?" she asked. "Yes." "Stay inside, units will check it," she said. The van's engine shut off. A man stepped out in a reflective vest that looked too clean to be real workwear. He didn't approach the store. He walked to the trash can by the curb, tossed something in, then stared up at my camera. He got back in and rolled out before a cruiser even turned into the lot. The deputy who arrived took my description and the name I'd read off the side. "Northline," he repeated, writing it down. "Big letters," I said, "like they wanted me to." He studied me. "If you see that sedan again, call 911, he said. "Don't go outside alone tonight." In the morning, Dawn called. "You're making problems," she snapped. "I'm not doing another overnight," I said. "Then you're done," she replied. I brought the key at noon and still checked my backseat twice before driving home. 2 days later, a detective called. "Evan Mercer?" he asked. "Yes." "Detective Harlan," he said. "We pulled your video. It's rough, but it shows movement in the back seat. We opened a case. Number 260417. "If I remember anything else?" I asked. "Call me direct," he said. After that, I changed routines. Different route, different store. I stopped parking under streetlights because streetlights make good cameras. I found new work fast. Overnight sanitation at a 24-hour gym. Mop, wipe, empty bins, fewer strangers, more locks. It sounded like progress. My supervisor, Marin, did the handoff at 10 p.m. "Door stays locked after midnight," she said. "If anyone knocks, you don't open. Members badge in." Even if they say it's urgent? I asked. Especially then, she said. Call me if it's weird. Call police if it's dangerous. The first week was quiet. Quiet enough that I started to unclench. Then, on a Thursday at 2:11 a.m., the front windows rattled with soft, steady tapping. Tap, tap, tap. I froze mid-wipe and looked up. A man stood outside just beyond the lobby lights. Dark cap, bright vest. Face kept in shadow on purpose. He pressed a plain cardboard box against the glass. No logo, no label, like a delivery that didn't need proof. He tapped again, then pointed at the box, then pointed at me. I walked to the lobby but stayed back from the door. His lips moved. I couldn't hear him through the glass. I shook my head and mouthed, "No." He smiled like I'd answered correctly. He lifted his phone, screen facing me. A photo loaded. It was my hand on my steering wheel, taken from outside my car, close enough to catch the small scar on my knuckle. Under it, a text bubble on his screen. 2600417. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. I backed away and called Marin. She picked up on the second ring. "Evan?" "There's a guy outside," I said. "Reflective vest, box. He has a photo of me, and he just showed me my case number." A beat then. "Do not open that door. Get to the office. Lock it. I'm calling police." I moved fast, keeping the lobby camera in view as I retreated. In the cramped office, I locked the door and watched the monitor. The tapping changed rhythm. Slower. Patient. Then the front door handle jiggled once, twice. The third time, it held tension like someone testing how much force would be noticed. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You look different without the name tag." Blue and red lights washed the lobby 10 minutes later. 2 officers came in through the staff hallway Marin must have buzzed remotely. "Did you open the door?" the first one asked. "No." "Did he say anything?" he asked. "Not that I could hear," I said. "He just showed me things." The second officer returned holding the cardboard box with gloved hands. "He left it by the entrance," she said. They photographed it on the counter, then slid it into a clear evidence bag. Inside was packing paper, a single disposable glove, and a torn strip of paper with one line printed in block letters. "Exit 14 still runs all night." The first officer looked at my phone, then at the paper. "You already have a case number?" he asked. I nodded. He wrote his report number on a card and handed it over. "Add this to your file," he said, "and don't assume changing jobs means you disappeared." By sunrise, Marin told me, corporate didn't want liability on overnights. She slid a transfer sheet across the desk. A graveyard cashier slot at a highway travel plaza on the edge of town. New building, new cameras, same hours. I signed because I needed money and because trucks meant more witnesses. The first night there, a regular in a work jacket bought coffee and a pack of gum, then smiled at my bare chest where a name tag should have been. "Still doing nights, huh?" he said like we'd met before. I stared at him, trying to place the voice. "Have we met?" I asked. He shrugged. "I notice people who pay attention." He set his change down in a neat stack, eyes drifting past me to the hallway camera monitor. "You're the only one on?" he asked. "Till 5, I said, immediately regretting it. He nodded like he'd confirmed a schedule. "Safer than the gym," he added, and the words landed heavy because I'd never told anyone here about the gym. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, smiled, and said, "Tell Exit 14 I said hi." The travel plaza was bigger than Cedar Stop and louder than the gym, but nights still had that gap between headlights. I worked the front register from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. coffee, cigarettes, shower tokens, keys for the locked restrooms. The regular came back on my second night. Same work jacket, different hat. He bought black coffee and paid with exact change he'd already counted. While I rang it up, his eyes moved. Ceiling domes, exit signs, the convex mirror over the hot case. Like he was building a map without needing paper. When he left, my phone buzzed from an unknown number. A photo loaded. My car in the employee lot. Plate, perfectly framed. Under it, nice spot. Easy exit. I didn't park there again. I moved my car under the brightest light by the main entrance, beside the overnight mechanics bay where people came and went. I started writing down plates of vehicles that idled without fueling. On the fourth night, he returned wearing a different costume. Reflective vest, clipboard, Northline, printed in plain black letters across his chest. The same word I'd seen on the van that hovered at Cedar Stop after the sedan fled. He stood by the drink coolers and pretended to read a checklist. The act was almost believable, except he never looked at a single product. He watched my reflection in the glass. He came to the counter and explained politely that he was doing an overnight safety inspection and needed access to the back corridor and the camera room. I kept my hands flat on the counter, visible to the lens above me. I told him we didn't do inspections without a manager present, and offered to call mine. His smile tightened. He said my manager would hate the paperwork, like he'd met every boss I'd ever had. Before leaving, he nodded toward the staff hallway and asked if I kept that door locked. I didn't answer. 5 minutes later, the staff door sensor chirped. Not the full alarm. The small internal beep that meant the latch had been tested, but the door hadn't opened far enough to trigger the loud siren. I pulled up the hallway camera feed. The angle was wrong, leaving a blind wedge near the hinges where someone could stand and be nothing but a shoulder. The beep came again. Then the handle moved, slow and controlled, like whoever was out there knew exactly how much force would register. I called 911. Dispatch asked my name, and I gave it through clenched teeth. I gave the cross streets, described the attempted entry, and said I was alone behind the counter with the doors locked. The beeping stopped. That quiet was worse, because it meant he'd either left or found another way in. A minute later, the front doors slid open and the regular walked in. No vest, no clipboard, just the same jacket and the same calm. He didn't look surprised by the locked doors, the way most people did when the place was technically open, but the air felt closed. He walked straight to the counter and watched my hands instead of my face. He made it clear, without raising his voice, that he only wanted a word. He glanced at my phone and reacted like he already knew who I'd called. That killed the last doubt. The first time at Cedar Stop, the sedan left the second I got dispatch on the line. Now he'd come inside to see what calling did to me up close. The radio at my hip crackled. An overnight cleaner in the other wing asking if everything was okay. I answered yes, too loud, too steady, making sure my voice went into a system someone else could replay later. The regular's eyes flicked to the radio, then to the camera, calculating. He slid a folded piece of paper across the counter with 2 fingers and left it there. He didn't wait for me to touch it. He walked out like a customer who'd decided against candy, then disappeared into the dark space between 2 idling semis. I didn't open the paper until the first cruiser pulled in, and I saw an officer step through the doors with a body camera light blinking. It wasn't a threat written in blood. It was worse because it was clean. A simple line telling me to stop running. because it made things messy. I gave my statement again. I showed screenshots. I pointed out the Northline vest, the clipboard, the door sensor, the regulars' timing. The officers searched the back corridor and found nothing. What they did find made my stomach drop. A small black tracker magnetized under my rear bumper, blinking like it was proud of itself. The officer photographed it, gloved up, and dropped it into an evidence bag. He wrote my name on the tag in thick marker, like he was anchoring me to a file that was getting heavier. A week later, Detective Harlan emailed an update from an address that looked official enough to trust. He attached 2 stills. One was the sedan from my first night at Cedar Stop, clearer now because corporate finally released a better copy. The other was the Northline vest man at my travel plaza, face turned just enough toward the lens to show the same jawline, the same small scar at the corner of his mouth. Same person, different uniforms, same patience. The message was short. Suspect identified, multiple aliases do not engage. I moved apartments the next day, new building, new route, new locks. I stopped working nights. For 3 quiet weeks, nothing happened. I started to breathe like a normal person again. Then, on a Sunday afternoon, I opened my mailbox and found a plain envelope with no return address. Inside was a printed photo of my new front door taken from the hallway angle. The Deadbolt brand was visible. On the back, in block letters, was one line: "You still pick night doors."